What industry is a complete scam, but everyone just accepts it? Story 1. Mattress stores. No way are mattresses being sold at a volume to keep the doors open. They seem like fronts. Story 2. Any company that offers to file your taxes for money, the federal government literally knows the precise amount of taxes you owe every year. Those tax-helping business schemes are just moneymakers. Story 3. Marketing. An entire industry built on the premise of convincing people to buy things they don't need. Story 4. Health insurance. It serves absolutely no purpose. It doesn't treat patients. It doesn't manufacture or deliver medications. It doesn't involve itself with RD or better treatment options. Its sole purpose is to get between the medical industry and the people who need it, i.e. every single person alive today, and extract money. Story 5. Orthodontics, specifically in the U.S., it's way overpriced compared to other countries. For example, braces are anywhere between $3.7 in the U.S. If you go south of the border, you'll pay maybe $12 max for braces. Story 6. The wedding industry. The way suppliers mark up everything as soon as they know it's for a wedding is just criminal. Story 7. Health insurance. Pay $800 a month. Pay for prescriptions. Pay for doctor visits. Pay for blood test diagnostics. Doctors dislike it. Patients dislike it. There's so much paperwork that the insurance company has a massive layer of admin that increases overhead. Believe it or not, in 2026, most standard doctor visits and minor problems are cheaper out of pocket. It's almost better at this point to just have catastrophe insurance and pay for minor stuff out of pocket. Oh, and don't forget, neither you nor your doctor are the final say in your care. That's really the ultimate scam. Answer: I implore anyone who needs health insurance to find a union job if possible. My 50 dues cover my medical, eye, and dental. $1,200 deductible, $200 out of pocket, 15 doctor visits, 50 ER and urgent care visits. I just had a surgery that billed my insurance $62. I'm going to pay $1,200 and some random stuff like anesthesia and my walking boot scooter. In December, I'm going to get the same surgery on my other leg for pretty much free. Story 8. Insurance. We literally pay people billions of dollars a year to take our money and give it to providers while pocketing some of it, and then they deny people the very money they paid. I mean, think about that. All they're doing is taking money from everyone without doing a fraction of the work and only partially help people. Story 9. The wedding industry. Same food, same chairs, same photographer, same venue, but the second you say the word wedding, the price triples and everyone acts like that's normal. I've literally seen a venue quote fork for a party and 11 for the exact same room once it's a wedding. IDK, how that's not just open robbery. And yeah, people will defend it like it's a special day. Cool, doesn't make the tablecloths more emotional. And before anyone says it, yes, you can DIY or elope or whatever, but the scam part is how baked in it is socially. Like you're the weird one if you don't want to burn a down payment on one afternoon. Also, random side note, but every wedding DJ I've met drives a suspiciously nice truck. Answer: oh dang, I am wedding DJ and do drive a nice truck. Never thought about that potentially offending people. But I did 45 weddings last year. The profit for us is about $900 per wedding after all costs, not including the 15 in gear I purchased 2 years ago. Usually a 12-hour day. I think making $75 for making sure someone's day is everything they hoped it would be is a fair rate. But there's definitely dudes in my area that would do it for half the cost and pull up in a 5 Kia. But they book me instead. Story 10. Insurance most of the time. Always seeing people slowly losing money to have peace of mind, even when they have the resources to pay for the emergency anyway. Insurance companies do everything they can to avoid paying out. And I'm not even talking about litigation. Accidentally drop boiling oil on your wood floor? Sure, they'll fix it. But the out-of-pocket is $1,000 and you lose your no-claim bonus. Maybe you save $200 after paying thousands over the last 5 years, and now your new premiums are $200 higher. The business model isn't set up for you to win. Story 11. The entire billions-of-dollar industry of middlemen that exists in the U.S. healthcare insurance system. I've worked with some very nice people who were brokers, reps, etc., but all the while just seething that they are part of a parasitic system. And if I could snap my fingers and make their job obsolete, I would do it in a heartbeat. Story 12. Multitudes of industries riding on the back of the climate change industry. The most egregious would have to be the carbon trading industry. Story 13. The online advertising industry. It's full of fraud from top to bottom, and almost everyone is looking the other way. For example, Here's the minimum click fraud rates by ad network in Q4 2025. Meta, Facebook. 6 Meta, Instagram. 38 Meta, audience. 67 Google, search. 13 Google, display. 27 Google, YouTube. 5 LinkedIn, platform. 17 LinkedIn, audience. 24 Microsoft, search. 14 Microsoft, audience. 24 TikTok, platform. 68 TikTok, audience. 79. This scam steals at least 100B from advertisers every year. I'm doing a doctorate in this topic if you want to ask me any questions. It's quite striking when you think about it. You pay a fortune for tuition, yet the system is designed so that you still have to drop hundreds of dollars on a textbook just to get a one-time access code. It feels a lot like the modern video game industry, where after buying the main product, you're forced to pay extra just to unlock content that arguably should have been yours from the start. Story 14. Printer ink. It costs pennies to make, but costs more per ounce than human blood or vintage champagne. The real scam isn't even the price. It's the microchips inside the cartridges that expire the ink or tell you it's empty when it's still 20 full. Plus, why does my printer refuse to print a black and white document just because I'm low on cyan? Story 15. The leave a tip option on almost every transaction, including ones where a service is not being provided by a human, and your options are 25, 30, or 40. Story 16. Car salesmen. There is zero reason for them to exist, and they make the car buying process unbearable. Story 17. Real estate. House price inflation is egged up by these middlemen, but owners, and especially sellers, are okay with it because it benefits them. Story 18. Eyeglass frames. If we enforce the Sherman Act, there would be a competitive marketplace. But Republicans have everyone believe that enforcing it is radical communism. Story 19. Maybe this is a hot take, but realtors, I don't see that they add much value, certainly not at their commission levels. Story 20. The mattress industry. You're telling me I need a 2000 pocketed coil hybrid with organic latex to not wake up feeling like I got hit by a bus? My grandpa slept on a sack of hay and built a barn before breakfast. Answer: I worked for a mattress company. Twice a year they had employee sales where we could buy products at just about cost. I am not sure exactly what it costs to make a 800 mattress, but we could buy them for around 80. I made some nice bonuses off selling them for 500. Also, they'd sell the same memory foam stuff under different brands. You could buy one of our pillows at Sharper Image for like 120 or something crazy, or buy the exact same pillow at Walmart for maybe 30. Story 21. The entire banking system. It just invents money out of nothing and lets you borrow it, and then they charge you interest on the made-up money. And they don't actually keep your money. They invest it in risky assets. Might lose your money. And if they're big enough, they'll get bailed out by the bigger bank, which will just print the money out of thin air, which makes everything more expensive for all of us. Story 22. Insurance. When an industry who makes billions in profits by not having to pay for a service you have subscribed to, and your government doesn't have a problem with that, so you then have no recourse, that's a scam. I mean, how infuriated would you be if you got a bill for $150,000 from Marvel Studios for a movie you watched on Netflix, and Netflix goes, you should have read the fine print. Your membership doesn't include your favorite content. Story 23. Insurance agencies. Why do we need an insurance agent? Why can't we just go to Allstate's website and get our own? Story 24. Concerts with Live Nation Ticketmaster. Yes, there are cheaper, more local shows. Yes, there are people that choose not to support them. But the vast majority of concerts out there are sold through Live Nation Ticketmaster. And the vast majority of people choose to just buy the tickets anyways, me included. Wish there were more options for the artists I care to see. Story 25. Residential construction. General contractors have barely any real liability and hold all the power. Scare AF. Story 26. Agricultural seed sales. There are a lot of evil companies in the U.S., but Monsanto has to be near the top. Story 27. Online courses sold by manufactured influencer entrepreneurs. Next time someone wants to sell you information about how to do something, ask yourself, if they make so much money doing X, why wouldn't they just keep doing that instead of trying to invent forums full of new competitors? Because selling a course to suckers is way more profitable and way less work. Grant Cardone was probably my first interaction with this nonsense. Thankfully, at the time, I was already too broke for what he was selling. Story 28. Is it not just all industries? except agriculture at its core, healthcare, education. All else is just made up and as such not necessary. Story 29. Does your country still require passport photos to be taken by a professional photographer? In 2026? When everyone has a camera in their pocket? Really? Story 30. Health insurance in the USA. Plain and simple, it's robbery. Pay ridiculously high monthly premium fees, as well as thousands or tens of thousands out of pocket and deductible, all for them to still not pay for any form the $100,000 bill you get for an emergency room visit. It's disgusting, blatant thievery. We need more Luigi action since, of course, our government will do nothing but protect corrupt companies in this country. Story 31. Extended warranty on electric goods. You don't need one for 7 years. The technology will be vastly different. Move on. Buy an upgraded version. Story 32. Fashion and clothing. Everything made in China, including these luxury brands. They just make a label made in Italy and stitch it to the Chinese-made products. Story 33. Realtors. Yeah, thanks for the help selling my home, but you don't deserve 5 of the value of the home. LOL, it's such bullshit. Story 34. Vitamins, homeopathy, weighted vests, naturopathy, chiropractic. The list goes on. You know what they call alternative medicine that is proven to work. Medicine. Story 35. Dad always said insurance was legalized highway robbery. You got to have it, but if you use it, it costs more. It isn't right. Story 36. I feel that, for now, the new car industry is a big scam. They make them cheap as hell and charge way too much for them. Story 37. The wedding industry. Yes, it's one of the most important, consequential days of your life, and it's natural to celebrate it as a community. After all, that's the purpose of a wedding. Unfortunately, there isn't one aspect that hasn't been commercialized to the point that, simply because it's a wedding, its cost is considerably greater than if it were for any other purpose. Add in the wedding planners with the latest trends, and your special day has been commodified to the nth degree. I recently heard a young, newly engaged couple say they would save 3 years for their wedding because their budget would need to be $60-$75. By contrast, my parents, who were married in 1959, had a church wedding with 2 people in their wedding party and had their reception in my grandparents' backyard. No frills, but no debt either, and by their pictures, it looked like a lovely wedding. It's interesting to observe how traditional real estate commission models remain so firm despite all our technological progress. Today, people can find listings and research the market themselves, yet the business structure is often set up so that a middleman still takes a significant cut. It's a clear example of how an industry can successfully protect its legacy rules, even as the world around it changes. Story 38. There are lots of industries that aren't necessarily scams at their core, but have scammy aspects. Examples. Airline loyalty programs make it seem like a good idea to try to stick to the same carrier, but paying more to do so isn't really worth it unless you fly at least 20-30 times per year. Laundry detergent measuring cups are oversized to make it seem like you need to use more detergent than is actually necessary. Story 39. Other than the aluminum, most of the recycling you sort out and clean is eventually going into the landfill. The aluminum is what pays for your community's recycling program, which is why they don't want homeless people pulling the cans out of your assorted recycling. Plastic recycling is a complete scam invented by the plastic industry to shame the consumer and prevent deposit laws or other restrictions. Story 40. Not a complete scam, but digital advertising, specifically how it's measured, is a big load of bullshit. Story 41. Diamonds. They have an abundance of them, and the vast majority aren't worth anything near what they're sold for. Story 42. Unpopular opinion here, but insurance. How can it be good for you if there is enough overheads to pay the agents, staff for the entire company, and sustain the company running costs? Story 43. Supplements. For instance, they have a gazillion commercials for Prevagen. They were sued for making false statements about their product. Story 44. Real estate agents make sense in theory, but the industry is mostly just a well-regulated pyramid scheme. Story 45. Recruitment consultants. Absolute no value added whatsoever. Just actively creating an unnecessary step as a middleman. Story 46. Bottled water. Half of it is just bottled tap water sold for 20x the price. The other half is worse than tap water, and it's all loaded with microplastics for the bottle. Story 47. Looks like most of these comments are totally missing the point of a scam and are listing things that they feel are unjust and overpriced. Not scams, not Story 48. The financial industry. Truly absurd how much money these people take home for making rich people richer. Data proves almost none of them beat the market, yet they continue to get filthy rich from financial engineering. Zero benefit to society. Story 49. Debt relief. It just drives you more into debt, and most of the offers or lower payments they claim to get are ones you can get yourself if you call your credit card companies yourselves. Answer. National debt relief got me out of 20 in debt. I get it. The part about settling at a lower price is kind of a lie because you end up paying off around the same amount due to fees. But trying to pay down large credit debts with their interest rates, I would have paid even more in the long run. I had no chance of paying it down and would probably still be chasing it. Agree 100 if we're talking consolidation loans. Story 50. College. When I went to college, I did a project on how college prices and costs have gone up. Before government aid existed, college was relatively affordable. After the government started to get involved, there was a slight bump by 10 or maybe 100, and then prices started ballooning. College has gone up higher than the price of inflation. College textbooks have agreements with certain companies and colleges that the next year make the book completely useless. I have had multiple professors admit to this. Furthermore, a select few companies own the textbook industry, not just in colleges, but also public schools such as high school and elementary. There was one meme that said students had to buy a college book to read paragraph 10 on page 267 of this expensive book, and I lived it. A college class has me read on chapter and I threw it away after the lesson section. Professors usually rather do studies than teach and get exorbitant amounts of money for what exactly? I understand college can be life-changing for some people, but why do college students need all this sports equipment and fancy dinners at the dorm rooms? A lot of the money gets poured into college stadiums instead of college classrooms. Colleges love to ask for more government money through student loans, and politicians happily oblige. Some call it a scam, but I call it a racket. Oddly enough, the bookstore that was out of campus where I went had a very affordable prices and a vast selection of books. Unfortunately, that store went out of business, so now it is a college that has a monopoly on book sales. The marketing strategies here have been executed almost perfectly. For years, the public has been conditioned to view tap water as something questionable, which allowed companies to package and sell that same resource in plastic bottles. It's one of the most remarkable examples in history of turning a widely available public resource into a highly profitable commercial product with a massive markup. Story 51. Insurance. I pay my whole adult life for car, home, etc. Pay every month in case something happens. And if something does happen, they want to try and pay as little as possible. And if nothing ever happens, that's it. They keep the money. How is it not considered a deposit like I stay with a car insurance company for 10 years, then decide to change companies? If I have had no claims, why do I not get that money back when I leave that company and end my coverage? Story 52. Energy companies shouldn't be privatized. Duke runs the energy in my area, but yet Duke will charge twax. There's like 10 companies. Try and give you some different rates, acting as some middleman with bunch of locked-in rates with fees, cancel rates, crap. Story 53. Carfax. If your buddy fixes your car, they have no record of it. It's just a scam for dealerships to keep a subscription. Story 54. Diamonds. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars on a rock to demonstrate that you love someone. Story 55. Software companies. At one point, you bought software and owned it. Now you have to pay per month to license it. Story 56. For-profit colleges. While there may be some that are on the level, many will accept pretty much anyone, especially if they're low income, and then get them to apply for and get financial aid, which they will then just take in exchange for a degree that means basically nothing. Story 57. Moving companies. I just finished an interstate move and feel so gross after dealing with these people who seem to have no problem completely disrupting the lives of their customers while squeezing as much money as possible out of us while never meeting their estimates, time frames, or quality of service promises. Story 58. Healthcare insurance, real estate, practically anything related to Department of Defense procurement. Story 59. Credit score, FICO. If you pay off your loan early, your score drops. Close an old credit card. Boom. Your score drops. Apply for too many loans, your score drops. The system punishes financial responsibility and rewards permanent debt. Story 60. Realtors. System parasites, bought and sold. 2 apartments from owner to owner. Easy peasy. Got my house directly from the builder. No third parties involved. Again, hassle-free process. If I'm looking to sell, I'll advertise on popular sites. If I'm looking to buy, I'll post on the same sites or ask around. I don't need some schmuck showing me properties he does not own and is motivated by a potential commission. Story 61. The productivity industry. It convinces exhausted people that the problem isn't overwork or unrealistic expectations. It's that they haven't bought the right system yet, so they spend more time optimizing their lives than actually living them. Story 62. Paper straws. They completely fail at their only intended purpose for the 5 minutes they have before they disintegrate. If you really want to eliminate the tiny portion of plastic waste that comes from our straws, just make them out of a biodegradable material or ban them altogether. Creating useless products is the opposite of sustainability. Story 63. Credit card swipe fees. It is a duopoly that fixes prices. We get excited for points and all that, not realizing that there is a baked-in 3 tax on everything we buy. Our swipe fees are about 10x the regulated rate in the EU. Story 64. Landscaping companies. Specifically that they show up just to show up every week so they can charge every week, even if there's no need to show up. They also maintain lawns at unhealthy lengths, way too short, and frequently prune things incorrectly. That's fine, though, because they can then charge for removal and replacement of the plants or trees they eliminate. Story 65. Software. I have yet to buy any software that is finished and doesn't need patching, enhancing, upgrading, or requiring an operating system upgrade that renders other software obsolete. Before software was a thing, goods for sale were of saleable condition, or you got your money back. Story 66. College. It's no guarantee that you get a job in your field. All those people taking out student loans for nothing. Story 67. Health insurance. If it were a good deal for the consumer, the insurance company would go bankrupt. It's literally adding a middleman to my healthcare costs just so they can profit off of my sickness. Even more. It's disgusting. Story 68. Acupuncture is no more effective than a placebo. The Chinese government encouraged acupuncture, along with other traditional Chinese medicine, to foster national pride, and because providing traditional Chinese medical practitioners was a lot cheaper than providing actual doctors. Story 69. Cold remedies, or at least many of them. Many of them, including big brand names, have no science showing they have any effect other than placebo. Yes, ibuprofen are real medicines, but the brand name stuff, not likely. Story 70. Educational research. Garbage methodologies. Tiny, cherry-picked samples from high-performing groups. No replication, and no one ever actually publishes the data they collect. Just a complete grift. Story 71. Perfumery. Even niche fragrances that use extremely expensive raw materials like orris butter, oud wood, sandalwood, etc., cost a few bucks max per 100 ml to make. Then some of the fancier bottles to hold the perfume are under 10 to produce. Most designer fragrances are ballpark 100,000 100 ml. Niche fragrances pretty much only get more expensive. I have a few bottles in my collection that MSRP for $380, and they probably cost the company a few bucks to make. This isn't a secret, and folks like myself that collect for fun are still out there. Story 72. Insurance companies are the only companies designed to sell you a product and then actively prevent you from accessing the product you bought. Story 73. Credit bureaus, where you're penalized for not having a lot of credit cards. Nuts. You increase your credit score by being more in debt. Story 74. Tax preparation. The government knows how much you owe. Send a bill in the mail. That's how civilized countries do it. The ones with workers' rights, guaranteed PTO, affordable tuition, healthcare, etc. Story 75. Printer ink cartridges. You're basically paying champagne prices for what's essentially colored water. The markup is insane, but we all just keep buying them because, well, what else are we going to do? Story 76. Wellness. The wellness is larger than the healthcare industry by some metrics, but wellness industry doesn't get you results. It just empties your waylab. Story 77. Hearing aids. If a big box store can sell and service these things for 12 of the price of the specialty businesses, there is something wrong. Story 78. Supplements, chiropractors, coaches, dollar stores, most of the wellness industry, much of the life insurance industry. Story 79. Health insurance. All insurance is to some degree, but at least for auto there's at least some understanding of why it exists. Health insurance, though, is literally just a scam that exists only to enrich a handful of people. Story 80. Health insurance. I'm getting shaken down to the tune of $20 per month, and that's if I don't use it at all. If I do use it, I have to spend another 60 before my health insurance provider covers even so much as a nickel. That's 30 a year for the opportunity to have health insurance. Edit, corrected spelling errors. Answer, that's 30 a year for the opportunity to have health insurance. That is kind of insane, TBH. Here in Australia, I would need to have a household income of just over $850K per year in order to pay that much for healthcare. Ignoring the fact that with that kind of income, then I would be paying more for GP visits, but it wouldn't be that far off unless I had to visit the GP on a really regular basis. Basically, for the public healthcare system Medicare, I would be paying 2 of my income plus an extra 1.25 or 1.5 loading at certain household income breakpoints. With my current income level, it cost me around 10 to father 3 kids. 2 had multi-day hospital stays too, and that was mostly food from the hospital food stalls. It really starts to add up when you have 2 young kids who get hungry while you are keeping your pregnant wife company at the hospital. And for parking fees. Story 81, I-died detection. It's a textbook scam wrapped in tech jargon and sold as academic integrity or content security, but it's built on shaky science, zero transparency, and catastrophic false positives. These tools don't detect AI. They guess based on statistical patterns like sentence length, word choice, or punctuation, and flag anything that's too clear, too structured, or too fluent. That means non-native speakers get penalized for improving their grammar. Strong writers get accused for sounding too polished. Students lose grades, even degrees over algorithmic hunches. Story 82, insurance. Why the hell am I paying insurance if they're going to try every excuse imaginable to avoid paying when I actually need it? Story 83, too many to count. Virtually anything advertised on social media is transparently dishonest and low quality. Yet dumb fucks continue to purchase and make videos about such products. Story 84, over-the-counter name brand substances. The generic version is the exact same on the molecular level and does the exact same thing but costs like forks less. Story 85. All religions are scams to steal your money and keep you in line, working for the enrichment of the ruling class. Story 86. I will say law, independent of country, it's just for suppression of common men, politicians, and business can get away with almost anything. Even pedophiles can be president. Story 87. You'll never understand Ticketmaster. Why can't we just buy concert tickets from the venue for one price? Story 88. Chiropractic care. It's all literally based on the teaching of a mentally unwell snake oil salesman who spoke with Bone Ghost to develop his care mythology. Story 89. I find the whole detox and supplement craze pretty sketchy. It feels like a total placebo. You imagine it's working, and maybe you feel a spark, but it's usually just mind over matter. Story 90. Credit scores. Their oftentimes arbitrary nature, importance to your life, and the 3 companies you are slaves to. Story 91. Car dealership. What's the point of this negotiation BS? Companies should have a fixed price. Make it online ideally. Story 92. Building inspections when buying property. Not sure how it is in other countries, but in Australia, it is the responsibility of potential buyers to arrange structure, aesthetic inspections for a house they want to buy. This means that if you're in the market, you could potentially be shelling out a lot of money for reports and still wind up with no house, a prohibitive cost, especially for first home buyers. On the other side, the inspectors could just be printing out the same report from a single inspection for each individual prospective buyer and be raking it in. I think the onus of these reports should be on the vendor. They keep an inspector on retainer like they would a real estate agent who can update reports for the duration the property is on the market and take their fee when it sells. Story 93. Immigration and customs enforcement. Proud Boy thugs used to go around assaulting and starting fights with anyone that wasn't a right-wing extremist for fun. Now they're being paid with my tax dollars to do it. Story 94. Psychics mediums. Conning desperate, often mentally unwell, people out of their money with their shoot cold reading skills. If they argue about the comfort or guidance their service offers, they're even worse. Scum. Story 95. For-profit American insurance is basically robbery. They'll barely cover anything, fight you tooth and nail to deny you coverage, and if you forcibly wring money owed to you out of them too many times, they'll drop you as a customer and leave you without any insurance. If an actual health insurance tactic is keep denying care and hope the customer dies so that we don't have to pay for their bills, you know the system is corrupt, broken, and dysfunctional top to bottom. Story 96. Your face looks normal, but but you need to be beautiful, so you buy makeup. But then every woman's wearing it, so it just looks normal, but you need to be beautiful, so you buy more makeup. But then every woman's wearing that much, so it just looks normal, but you need to be beautiful, so you buy more makeup. And so on until every little girl has body dysmorphia and asks for Sephora for Christmas instead of toys. Story 97. Funeral, college, health, fast fashion, diamond and service fee industry are all scamming TF out of everyone. Story 98. Subscription services for hardware. I bought a physical product, but now I have to pay a monthly fee just to unlock the features that are already built into the machine. It feels like paying rent on something you already own. Story 99. The beauty industry. They sell questionable products that can damage your skin, they prey on your insecurities, and they make sure not to provide any real info on how to take care of your skin. That way, everyone is forced to constantly buy new different products to deal with problems created by products, which then just cause different problems that require different products, and so on. Story 100. Many megachurch pastors are scamming their parishioners. Many are multimillionaires. Crazy Kenneth Copeland is worth $300 million and convinced his followers he needed a private jet to talk to God. Joel Osteen has an elevator for all his fancy cars. They don't seem to be doing any church work or helping others, just coning the vulnerable out of tax these churches. Story 101. Luxottica owns like 80 of the brands, Ray-Ban, Oakley, Prada, etc., controls the stores, and marks up plastic frames that cost 10 to make into 400 designer pieces. Warby Parker and Zenni prove you can get quality prescription glasses for $5,100, yet we all just accept paying hundreds every couple years like it's normal. It's the same scam as Diamond's artificial scarcity marketing profit. Bonus. They lobby against online sales, so you need an in-person exam every time. We're all wearing overpriced Monopoly frames and calling it fashion. Story 102. Chiropractors. Most back pain improves with time, but chiropractors prefer you to credit them with the recovery after 10 visits and several $100s. Story 103. A scam. How about a straight-up cult? Pretty much any self-help system that exists that is course-based and/or subscription-based makes me incredibly dubious that it isn't just another front for someone who saw how easy it was to part people from their money after the modern cult success of groups like Twin Flames or NX or which are built on this self-help premise. Story 104. Recycling. The truck picks up different color bags, recycle and rubbish. In 75 of cases I've seen, it all goes to a waste site to be buried. Story 105. How we file taxes. Other countries, the government simply tells them how much they owe or get refunded. You don't really need to file anything unless you own a business. Here we have a government that knows it all already and hopes you get it wrong, but lets blood-sucking middlemen charge us to file it for us because of lobbying. Answer. Can't say anything about the U.S. tax system, but in Germany, you don't have to file taxes when you are employed, and this employment is your single source of income. Income taxes are directly subtracted monthly and paid directly by your employer. As soon as you have additional income sources, however, like rent, interest, stocks, or want to take advantage of tax exempts, you also have to file taxes. The process is kind of similar to the U.S., I guess. For the first filing, you have to estimate your income. For the following year, the tax office will simply assume you make the same as the year before. At year end, you have to state what you effectively made and will either get a refund or have to pay additional taxes. Once filed, you have to file for the rest of your life. Story 106. DEI training consultants. Research over decades has consistently shown that DEI training actually makes people more intolerant. Story 107. Insurance. You pay into a system meant to protect you when they will do everything and anything in their power to fudge you over if it means saving money over your life. Story 108. The green energy industry. I used to work for a company that installed green equipment. Almost all of our customers followed a similar path. 1. Apply for green energy grants from the government. 2. Use that initial grant money stolen from the taxpayers as cheaply as possible to crank out a proof of concept that barely works. 3. Show said proof of concept machine to government representatives so they can clap like happy seals that don't understand what they're looking at and award more grant money, taxpayer money to further refine the proof of concept into a workable, profitable product. 4. Take that product to market and profit. Really, the whole fudge industry is a horrible scam to socialize risk with taxpayer money and then privatize their profits down the road. And that's not counting for the fact that the specific niche that I worked for used electricity to generate hydrogen. Which, sure, hydrogen burns clean and all that jazz, but electricity the world over is still overwhelmingly generated by burning hydrocarbons. So in reality, they're just robbing Peter to pay Paul. Don't even get me fudge started on the whole carbon credits horse shit. That just allows the rich to pay more for the privilege of burning shitloads. More carbon cough, Taylor Swift, cough, and BTW. This is all coming from a dude who wholeheartedly believes in climate change. I just believe the proliferation of nuclear energy is how we go green, for real. And until that's on the table being discussed as a legitimate path forward, I'm not buying any of the climate bullshit. This is a very complex and sensitive topic because it touches people during their moments of greatest emotional vulnerability. It is a difficult reality that the business model in this industry sometimes relies on the fact that during a time of grief, people are the least likely to negotiate or shop around for better deals, often fearing they might appear disrespectful to the memory of their loved one. Story 109. Extended warranties. They are sold as peace of mind, but they are priced so the company almost always wins. Story 110. Tourist traps. Everything is double price and non-authentic, and yet most of us just pay because we don't do it often. It's easier, and we expect it. Story 111. Realtors taking 5/6 of a home's sale price as fees regardless of effort. This translates to $16,710 in fees for 300, zero home 33, 420 in fees for 600, zero home, and 100, 130 in fees for 900, zero home. These fees are split between the agents, but the industry makes every effort to avoid any discussion or negotiation of these fees. Answer. The National Association of Realtors just settled a $1 billion lawsuit regarding commissions last year. It's now state by state, and in California, speaking with experience in the industry, selling agents have to negotiate with the listing agent's sellers on their commission. It's no longer a guarantee. California also now has a buyer representation broker commission agreement where the buyer's agent has to negotiate the commission with the prospective buyer before they can start submitting offers. Sellers in their listing agreement package also have a broker compensation agreement that advises them of the selling agent's commission negotiation. Story 112. The entire car industry. Why can't I buy a car directly from Ford at a set price? I shouldn't be forced to buy it from a broker dealership like Ticketmaster. Any industry with a middleman or gatekeeper is a scam. Story 113. Any industry or company that uses any version of a pyramid scheme, Thrive, the stupid protein shake one, whatever. Story 114. The lottery. I interned at an advertising agency that represented the state lottery. At one point, as a camera guy, I was tasked to go along with one of the strategy people to do some on-the-street interviews to present our client with how people perceive them. We hit up 2 places, the upscale city waterfront and a busy truck stop by the dockyard. No one we talked to at the waterfront played the lottery, but at the truck stop, darn near everybody played the lottery. Speaking with people there, they were perfectly aware of the odds, and none took the notion of winning seriously, but that's not what they were paying for. They were paying so they might give their mind some permission to daydream about winning. It was an interesting breakdown. People who had the least were winning to pay extra so they might just dream of a comfortable life. People who already had a comfortable life saw no use in it. Answer, I've got a doctorate in mathematics, so I definitely understand the odds. But every once in a while, the Powerball gets high enough that mathematically the odds are just about even. It happened recently when the payout hit $1.6 billion. It's still dumb to play, but every couple of years when it crosses that threshold, I buy like 10 worth of tickets and have a nice time for a couple of days imagining what I might do with the money. I've partied too hard 10 on much dumber things than a bit of silly hope. Story 115. Because of the cost dentistry, cleaning's fine, but a root canal for $3,500 on top of my insurance. I get their recommendations and go to Mexico and pay a fraction of that. Story 116. Insurance. I pay monthly so that I can then pay for an accident and have you pay me back later? GTFO of here with that nonsense. If I pay you monthly just in case, then I should never have to pay another bill. Story 117. La industria de las bodas. Te cobran como 5 a 10 veces MS por todo. Y todo el mundo lo acepta porque es el DMS importante de tu vida. Una estafa total, pero nadie se queja. Story 118. Maybe the meatpacking industry. I don't know why beef is still outrageously expensive. I don't think the ranchers are getting rich. Story 119. Chiropractic. Everything chiropractors do that works can be done by others, and everything only chiropractors do doesn't work. Story 120. Chamber of Commerce are a group of businesses, not a government agency. They solely care about business interests first and foremost. They have lobbied in NC to allow businesses to keep polluting rivers because regulation can hurt business profits. Allow pollution into people's drinking water so a business with questionable ethics can continue not doing the bare minimum. Story 121. Payday lending companies, those companies that pay you money for accidents and then collect on the bigger amounts, giving people credit cards who should not have credit cards, so they stay in debt for the rest of their life. People going to private colleges and taking out loans for a degree they'll never pay off and won't help them in the job market, or really in any way except they can poetry sometimes. The whole alternate medicine thing, and just about every YouTube ad that says, "Don't believe doctors," that is a sign that you're about to hear some serious horseshoot. Story 122. In the U.S., insurance companies, if I have a $80K bill after insurance, it's because the system is broken. Answer: note that the concept of insurance does make sense, but what doesn't make sense is turning it into a for-profit industry. The base idea, everybody pays into a pool that takes care of those when they're needed. The pool has the liquidity to do this, but once you start taking money off the top of the pool, you effectively profit from other people's suffering. So insurance isn't the problem. For-profit insurance companies are. Story 123. Tipping culture in restaurants. Why should the customer have to foot the bills for an employer who underpays their employees? Surprised this hasn't toppled yet. Story 124. Dieting programs. 95% of people who diet regain any initial weight loss. Then they sign up again for another weight loss program, only for the same thing to happen. Story 125. Bank advisors, who basically just want to sell you ETFs, building society savings contracts, or other insurance policies with exorbitant fees. Story 126. In Canada, the standard seems to be rental water heaters and even furnaces, AC, and water filters. They charge so much per month that you could pay the unit 5 to 10 times over during its lifetime. Such a total ripoff that everyone seems to just accept like, it saves money because you don't have to pay when they come out to fix it. Do the math, it's a horrible deal. Story 127. The government, insurance, ticket sellers, car dealers, well, pretty much any in-between sales force that isn't direct. Story 128. Property management, paid by people who can afford a house but don't want to manage it, doing everything in their power to keep property prices high while making life as difficult as possible for tenants who can't afford to buy a house. There's a lot of nuance I'm glossing over. At best, they protect one party from the other, breaking the laws of contract. Story 129. All this money I'm paying in insurance, I could have saved up enough money to fix my own darn car, and someone else is out of pocket. Story 130. Financial advisors literally cannot beat the S&P 500. Even Buffett beat them $1 million and they couldn't. Story 131. College textbooks. Edit: why am I being downvoted? Does everyone think it's okay to have to pay several $100s for a book for each class every single semester? Answer: it's even more scammy now than before. Now you have to buy the online access fee that of course cannot be resold, all but making the used book market obsolete. And just in case that's not enough, we are going to revise the book each year by updating Figure 12, 2, 14, 1, and 18, 3. We may also switch Chapter 4 with Chapter 5 because it just flows better that way. Story 132. Auto car salespeople. I can literally see how much it costs online, but I have to endure you upselling me on cost and interest rates. That should be illegal. Story 133. Higher education in the U.S. Costs are up for no reason other than federal assistance. Graduates are less capable, and utility of undergraduate degrees is rapidly declining. But you got to have a college education if you want to succeed. Bah! Story 134. Every realtor I've ever met was a clueless knob whose job seemed to consist of convincing people how hard they work, rather than actually working. Answer: I know someone who was, let's say, not the brightest. She has become big in the real estate business by simply getting money for no work whatsoever. Posts on social media are also as pretentious and imbecilic as the whole business. Picture her standing near a sea holding a phone. My client wants to pay for the most expensive house. I rolled my eyes so much, I saw my brain. Story 135. If you're in the U.S., tax services like TurboTax. If we were in a rational, functioning country, the government would just send us a tax bill, But no, we have to do it ourselves or pay for it thanks to corporate lobbyists. Answer. Here's how it works where I live, assuming not self-employed. Near the end of the tax year, your employer gives you all your figures. Then you go to the government website, log in, check that their numbers match the ones your employer gave you. Declare any additional income and deductible expenses, click submit. That's it. You're done until next year. Then you are either sent a bill or, always in my case, have you rebate credited to your bank account within a couple of weeks. Story 136. The astroturfing industry, aka grassroots advocacy, or whatever euphemism they're using now. Come to think of it, I'll have to ask them next time one of them turns up. The site is crawling with them in case you haven't noticed. Story 137. Accounting typically, the gov knows where most of the money is, but accountants help rich people with loopholes that get them out of paying their share. Also, realtors are 100 a scam and add nothing to society. Story 138. Insurance in general. Pay a fee to a collective fund for when things go wrong, and if you end up needing more money than you have on hand, but actually only if you meet our specific qualifications. Our lawyers will take their sweet time studying your case before deciding they can't disqualify you. And also, you'll have to fight tooth and nail for every penny you get out of us. And now you need to pay more money because you use the money you paid us. Are you even saving money at this point? Wouldn't it be easier to just save up on your own and pay your own way? Well, too bad, because we've inflated all the prices beyond what's humanly attainable because money isn't real. Also, those car insurance guys lobbied the government. So if you don't have insurance, if you aren't paying into the collective delusion, you will be punished with fines or jail time. It's brilliant. The medical guys are seething that they didn't think of it first. Story 139. Realtors. They get paid in percentages of sale price and also just so happen to be the ones who control the process of buying and selling homes and are the ones we are supposed to trust to know what is a good deal or not. Story 140. Honestly, most private practice doctors. I once scheduled an appointment at a doctor office for a specific issue, got to the appointment, waited an hour in the lobby, and they said they can't treat the issue because insurance won't cover it. I said, well, why didn't you run my insurance when I scheduled my appointment? She said, sorry, but that's not my job. Then she charged me $50 for our 5-minute conversation and something like $5 for parking. Another time I went to a dermatologist, the doctor asked if I wanted a specific mole biopsied. I said no, but he sent it out to the biopsy company anyway. That company billed me $300 and the doctor billed me $80. He did waive the $80 when I complained, but said he couldn't do anything about the $300 because it was a separate lab. I have about 3 more of those scummy stories where doctors tried to charge me hundreds or thousands just for shaking their hands. It's just a shame that so much of healthcare is just trying to avoid getting ripped off. Most of us have probably felt that frustration when you see an attractive ticket price, only to watch the total nearly double during checkout due to various service charges. Calling it a convenience fee feels quite ironic, considering the buyer usually has no other choice but to accept these terms if they want to attend the event or use the service at all. Story 141. Cable and internet companies have colluded to form their own monopolies or oligopolies. How many cable companies are available in your area? Chances are 1, 2. If there were dozens, then they would have to compete for your business. When there's only 1 or 2 companies in your area, they can do this. Story 142. Not fully a scam, but I'd say disposable razor cartridges. You can just use a safety razor with dirt cheap, pennies, metal razors. The whole shaving industry just feels like a scam to charge way more than needed. Story 143. I don't quite understand how the American healthcare system isn't just one giant scam, and some people even defend it. Answer. Total scam. I had a 5-minute call with a doctor recently to get a prescription for a low-risk medication that should be over the counter. Another scam. The receipt I got in the mail summarized how the negotiated rate that ended up being paid was just shy of $500 USD. A stupid 5-minute video call. Yeah, I just need a prescription for this little thing. Nothing else to discuss. No other health issues. Truly insane. Story 144. Insurance. Required for everything. Loves to take your money but really dislike to give any of it back. Story 145. Amway. If that is still a thing. I remember when I got out of college, I had 2 people give me the spiel like it was a job. I was desperate for a job, but not that desperate. Story 146. Health insurance, easily. An unnecessary and unethical money-greedy middleman who have mastered creative ways to screw all sides out of their money. Story 147. Basic optometry requiring a prescription. We have apps that can tell you your prescription, unless you need something special. Most people could just order glasses online, but it's illegal in the US. Story 148. UK airports, where you have to pay a 510 if you drive your car through a given zone, but you can't pay there and then. You have to pay online within 24 hours. If you are late, they hit you with a fine of around 100. The chances of forgetting, given that you might well be in the middle of have a multi-hour car journey when you pass through the charge zone, are pretty high. Story 149. Insurance. You pay in sometimes for years, and they can decide your claim is not worthy. Should have just put that payment in a coffee can and hid it in the dirt till you needed that money. Story 150. Any industry that does not directly generate energy and instead relies on interest or pooled capital. Story 151. The U.S. health insurance system, guaranteed to give the least actual health care for the most amount of money. Story 152. Home service companies owned by private equity. Most homeowners have no idea what a furnace should cost, and these companies take full advantage of that. Not just in HVAC, every single skilled trade has companies like this. Plumbing is even worse in some regards. Story 153. Health insurance is a parasitic intermediary with no social utility. It exists solely as a middleman to drive up costs between the provider and the patient. Story 154. The whole business-to-consumer food ordering industry, Uber Eats, DoorDash, whatever it's called in your country. Story 155. Most insurance companies. Health insurance makes money by not covering things, so they are anti-treating you in every way. Story 156. Real estate agents in the USA. It really doesn't make any sense, and it's so cutthroat that they're lucky to do a couple of deals a year. Most other countries don't do that. The title company does all the real work. The entire negotiation could just be handled directly. Before you say for sale by owner is a thing, keep in mind that you really aren't going to get any traction unless it's on the MLS. They basically got a monopoly for the one site everyone goes to. Someday, hopefully, this falls apart, and some companies are working to make that happen. But that's just how it is right now. Story 157. Private schools. When you control for family income, parental involvement, the private school advantage disappears. Story 158. The wedding industry and funeral industry. I refuse to blow more than Onek on a useless ceremony. Additionally, I loathe the fact that when I die, it'll probably be pumped full of chemicals and put on display. Like seriously, just dump my corpse into a hole. No need to put on a show. Story 159. Health insurance. Insurance as a general proposition makes sense. Insulating against catastrophe by everyone paying into a fund that is drawn on by the small number who are affected. But it's a different proposition entirely when the fund is for something that will happen to every single person, multiple times without fail, versus an unlikely but catastrophic disaster. So health insurance works differently from regular insurance. Rather than taking a cut of the dues and verifying that dispensation of funds only happens when the disaster has legitimately occurred, and fire insurance and arson, it becomes about refusing to pay as much as possible. You can't restrict payments to legitimate cases when 100 of your customers have legitimate cases, often many times per year. So health insurance is about the act of skimming value by inserting oneself between a patient who needs care and a medical establishment that agrees they need it. At this level of consumption, the buyer is often paying less for the quality of the material and more for the social status associated with a recognizable logo. It's fascinating how much value society is willing to place on a brand name, even when there is a general understanding that the actual cost of production is only a small fraction of the final retail price in a boutique. Story 160. Live service gaming. You're expected to buy 20 skins and battle passes every week, and when the game shuts down, all the stuff you buy is just gone. Story 161. Health insurance in the U.S. We could be paying providers directly instead of a blood-sucking middleman rewarding themselves with private jets and gold dinner plates for making the system worse. Story 162. Estate agents. They talk up the price for their commission checks and encourage greed to the point where a first-time house buyer is likely to be 34 years or more. Story 163. The beauty industry and all its snake oil. They mess with people's self-image and sell fad products at stupid prices to fix it. Look at the history of people going into massive debt for weddings. It's a relatively recent thing. Story 164. college textbooks, and new car dealerships. It's actually law in many states that you can't buy directly from the manufacturer. Story 165. Medical insurance. Why should a guy in a suit in another state be the deciding factor in the type of care that you need? That should only be between you and your doctor. Story 166. Real estate agents in this day and age. Here's this house. Here's a tour. Here are photos. Here are the same websites everyone uses, but give me of your entire house sale value. Story 167. Whatever industry that allowed SUVs to have shoot mileage and somehow cost like double the amount of a sedan. Story 168. If you are flummoxed by even simple paperwork, you can pay an accountant or a tax professional to make out the forms for you for them. This can cost a lot of money, and to make matters worse, they may tell you that you owe the IRS lots of money. Imagine that I am paying money to be told you owe money. Story 169. If nutritional supplements had any scrutiny whatsoever from a marketing and quality control standpoint, there would be a lot fewer products and companies out there. Not that the idea of Western diet supplementation or high-performance supplementation is a bad one, but this industry could really use some regulation. Story 170. Realtors. You can get all the legal paperwork done for $200, $500 at your attorney. You can gain basic FSBO knowledge in 15 to 20 hours and save yourself tens of thousands of dollars. Story 171. The funeral business. Sure, they're there to help you put your loved ones to rest, but the entire thing is just so stupidly, needlessly expensive. You can't even request to be chucked in the trash without shelling out thousands of dollars. On top of that, they prey on the grieving by pushing the more expensive and lavish options on the living in the name of dignity and respect for the dead. Answer. My gran gave her body to science. They came and collected, and a few months later called us because science had finished with her. We said thanks for letting us know, hope she advanced something good, goodbye, and hung up. They haven't called back, so that was one free option. I should add, she wanted that. We all agree in my family because we don't believe anything that isn't based on science and logic, but it's not like we cheaped out. She didn't want any of us spending money and then inheriting hers, because she said that just feels like she is paying for a funeral she neither wants nor gets to attend. Story 172. Real estate and all the offshoot industries that are linked to buying, selling a home. I swear to God, all the local people were in cahoots, and their collective goal was to skim as much money from us building a new house, selling our old one. Every other day, there was another amount of that had to be paid, and wouldn't you know, everyone had a recommendation on who to use. It all felt like one big racket. Story 173. Realtors. Never in the history of time has a group of people been paid so much for doing so very little. Answer. 95 are worthless, but there are a select few who actually work hard, and they're worth it. I was lucky to have one of those as a neighbor, and I've used her buying and selling a few properties. She always went the extra mile. One of houses wasn't getting bites, so we met and talked about what we could do change that. One of the minor things was some touch-up painting. She ended up doing most of it herself. In my opinion, there are so many darn realtors and so many who are bad because sales transactions are form-based, at least in Oregon. The forms make it so realtors can be lazy and don't have to think. I'm a real estate lawyer and get a lot of work from screwed-up addendums. I even experienced it myself personally when I used a different realtor. Long story. She sent an addendum she drafted with language that would have horrendous for me. I tried to explain why, and she got a bit agitated, saying, well, this is what it means and what will happen. But it didn't say that. When you have forms, it makes realtors forget that these are actual contracts. The words matter. You're essentially paying for MLS access with most realtors. If anyone hires a realtor when they already have interested buyers, they're just being dumb. Reach a basic agreement on terms, then have the lawyer draw it up. I did one recently, and my final bill was around $1,500. Agent commission would have been $32,000. Story 174. Religion. The Catholic Church has assets worth almost $3,300,000, selling a make-believe story, and people pay to hear it. The greatest bullshit scam in history. Story 175. Insurance. As a business model, no insurance company can function without screwing over their customers in some way. Health insurance companies make a profit off of denying valid claims. And the claims they do accept, they still don't pay the full amount on because they have deals with healthcare providers that lowers the cost. Car insurance companies can choose to drop you if they deem you not profitable enough, even though the entire point of car insurance is to ensure you aren't screwed if you get into a car accident. Home insurance companies will nickel and dime you on every single item you lost when they have to pay out. Story 176. Mega churches televangelist. I'm sure they're not all bad, but there's some that just seem like they're out to scam people. Story 177. Insurance. It's a bad idea from conception. No matter how you cut it, their goal is to take as much money from you as possible while giving you as little in return as possible. And it's not like they're doing anything, all that shoot run through algorithms. There's absolutely no reason why the government shouldn't provide this as a service. Story 178. 34 of the supplement industry and 100 of the industry that claims natural testosterone booster or weight loss supplement. Been in the fitness world for 18 years. All you need is protein, if it's difficult for you to eat what you need in a day. Vitamin packs, creatine monohydrate if you don't consume red meat regularly, and BCAAs if you don't consume enough meat. Anything else is an outlier need, like deficiencies or diets not getting you enough. And this is a case-by-case basis with the majority of people not needing them. Too many people take stuff they don't need, but think they need it because of the industry. Story 179. IDK, if it's BC, I'm not in the thing, or it's really dumb. Luxury fashion, perfume, textile, everything is so impersonal and absurdly expensive. Looks like the rich guys. Story 180. Anything to do with nitrogen-filled tires. The atmosphere is already 80% nitrogen. The tires are not mounted in a sealed room, so they can't be filled with 100% nitrogen. Also, most companies do not maintain or repair the equipment, rendering it useless. At the end of the day, nitrogen-filled tires are just 4 green valve stem caps and a few hundred missing from your wallet. Story 181. The people who pay for only fan and adult content when it's free and widely available on the internet. Story 182. Honestly, I feel like it would be more difficult to answer the opposite question. What business is honest, transparent, and makes a fair profit for their services? Story 183. Class in writing, we had a 19 USD style book. That was all. Every other class was $253 minimum. My wife paid over $900 for just the books for an accounting credentials class. She also can't resell them because the publisher sends cease and desist letters if they see them for sale on FBM, Craigslist, or eBay. Story 184. Mormonism. It's a commercial juggernaut based on tithing. 10 of your gross income for guaranteed happiness in their highest level in a tiered heaven. Total scam. Story 185. Churches. You are lied to, manipulated, led to believe they can fix problems they have no experience in, and you are expected to brainwash your whole family to attend. Story 186. Consulting. I had a couple of friends from college go into the consulting field after graduation. You just graduated and you have zero experience in the actual field. Who the hell are you consulting? Story 187. I scrolled pretty far down and didn't see bottled water. This is one of the worst scourges on the planet, along with most things Nestle. Story 188. The alternate energy suppliers. Got caught in one of those a few years ago. Now that I know what to look for, never again. Never. Story 189. Home title insurance in cities over 60 years old. A newly incorporated city might not have the Register of Deeds office running smoothly. Story 190. Baby things. Especially when similar things are usually 20-30 cheaper when not labeled for baby use. Ridiculous. Story 191. Real estate agents. Do I process the financing? Nope. Do I handle the title? Nope. Handle inspections? I might know a guy. How to? I figure out your home value. Just let me computer. Figure that out. What value do you provide? We have access to the MLS. Story 192. Consulting. I think the industry itself is fine in theory, but there are a lot of scam artists whose goal is to maximize their commission over everything else. Answer. It's hard for me to put into words, but I'll try. Consulting is like 30 bringing in expertise that doesn't exist within the organization, and 70 spreading out personal risk for executives. As often as not, the executives already know what they want, and the consultants just tell them what they want to hear and build a case to support it. That way, executives get what they want, but get to lay off the blame of failures to their superiors. Or in the case of employees, they get to blame the decisions that negatively impact people. Don't look at me. We brought in a well-respected outside firm with tons of experience in this area, and they advised us to. In other words, yes, scam, but also the consultants aren't exactly the scammers. Story 193. Health insurance. GTFO with this bullshit, where it's tied to employment, charges you a bunch, and then Even when you have insurance, it doesn't cover your costs. Answer: tied to employment is awful for many reasons, but I am now worried about one in particular. I got approved for a GLP treatment. My copay is $35. Direct from the pharma company is $350 per 4 weeks, depending on dose. Even though my starting BMI and comorbidities, apnea, but a couple other that are controlled without prescriptions currently, result in a prior approval for many plans, there is no guarantee. I asked my doctor, so what happens if I change jobs? And he gave me the look that you'd expect as someone that has seen people go through it. These are meds you likely need the rest of your life, though many taper down to a lower dose and maybe eventually longer between riders. Meaning that now I have to consider the very real possibility of my out-of-pocket expenses increasing by more than $6,000 a year when considering a potential job. If we could at least buy insurance directly without relying on employer contributing, 30, 50, or even 75 of the plan cost on your behalf. And it's not like they pay you more if you opt out. If our premiums were not pre-tax through employment, but required Schedule A to deduct and ignoring the first 5 of our taxable income for the healthcare expense deduction, this would be easier. Nothing makes you dislike American healthcare system like needing it, and I'm lucky. My current insurance is covering it with a $35 copay. I can afford to self-pay for meds if needed, but many others are not, or face issues like their providers requiring a change in meds due, partnering with a specific pharma company. Even if the different med is a different active ingredient that may give them worse side effects or results.